Like many of you, I watched MSI as the first LAN back in over 2 years, and I noticed that the use of weapons was a bit different. Off meta, some might say. Maybe, just maybe, meta doesn't actually matter that much. Obviously, I know all of you were shocked that I wasn't invited. Trust me, it's quite messed up honestly, seeing as how they didn't invite one of the creators onto the scene. However, there's something more important that I wanted to point out. I don't think the meta matters that much, and I don't think it mattered to MSI at all, or at least not as much as we make it out to be. Look at this weapon statistic of previous LAN victories. Wow. Isn't Scythe overpowered? No, it was the exact same weapon as it is now, slight tweaks, and there's only one guy that was using it to win anything. Obviously that guy is Sandstorm. He picked up Mordex, a Scythe character with relatively good stats and kinda odd signatures. Before you jump the gun on me, let's look at some of the other Scythe Legend signatures. Fate literally has a side sig that can be in a shotgun mode or a longer range mode. It's very clear. Mordex sigs are really confusing at first. Why is Gauntlet down signature so short? Why does he move backwards for his Scythe D-sig? Who knows? But to new players, these concepts are very foreign. But in the eyes of an experienced platform player such as Sandstorm, they're unique and potentially for the better. Mordex gameplay wasn't too popular back then, and despite the meta heavily favoring Katars, Sandstorm took it upon himself to pick out the character that he thought was broken.
What drew you to the game, and why did you choose to main Mordex early in your career? What drew you to him specifically? And when I first played Scythe, I actually played Nyx. I played Nyx and Mirage for the longest time, up until even 2018, before I won my first tournament. I switched to Mordex literally only because he was broken. Like, I neglected him for so long, but he was just so broken. And then over time, I just got used to him and had fun with him, and he was still broken. So that was who I played.
He was a Nyx main at the time, but before BCX, he believed Mordex was a broken character and decided to pick him up, which, as we know now, Mordex is quite a good character, a top tier character. And if you look at the production side of Brawlhalla, you'll see the first person to come up is Sandstorm. So obviously it brought him a lot of success. Bringing it back to MSI, spoiler alert, Meg D and Luna meet in Grand Finals. A great performance by everyone, but no one expected Meg D to make it to Grand Finals. A little backstory on Meg D is that he's infamously known to be passive. Everyone gets on Sandstorm, everyone gets that experience for being passive. Experience oddly enough admits to sharking and ones, as if it's like a normal thing. Hopefully he gets past that. But Meg D was memed on for a long time in the early days of Brawl for not attending LANs and abusing a not very abused factor of Brawlhalla, which is the excruciatingly long 8-minute clock. For most platformers, it's pretty much just cringe to abuse the clock in any game. Another player who used time to really wither out Luna in a grand finals was Snowy, with lots of weapon throws and short hopping around to bait out attacks and wither Luna's mental down. So when I saw Meg D versus Luna, I was a little worried for Luna. Also, look at the length of this grand finals match. Oh my god. Reset 2-2 all the way to the final stocks. I mean, it was just super long. It was so long that I went to go hang out with my friends and then pulled up the stream expecting it to be over and saw that it was still going on. So I sat in their driveway and watched the end of the tournament. So despite all this shock value, the thing that got me the most surprised actually was Luna on Thor. And now that you mention it, Thor's got Orb. Boomy used Orb. Radish used Orb. And Machete used Orb. Then it got nerfed. Damn. Back to Luna though. I don't think I've seen him use Thor in anything other than a money match. He also used Orb to money match Costlix to prove that he didn't need Axe, so he's used the weapon before, but after watching him place multiple times very well with Taros, boom, we see Thor. And really quickly, I wanted to point out that I am aware that Luna used Mordex for a lot of the ladder to get to Grand Finals, but I find it more interesting that when he's struggling, he switched off of Mordex, who is currently seen as one of the strongest characters in the game. So switching from Mordex to Thor to help out against Val was surprising, and that was the more meta-breaking factor to me and what I wanted to put emphasis on in this video. The only time I can think of Thor getting close to winning a LAN was Simple back in BCX 2019, and that wasn't even that close. Look, Sandstorm was so far ahead in the game that he's ahead in real life too. He gets up, looks at the camera, then has his arms preemptively open for the frame-perfect hug after winning the grand finals. A true gamer. Another elephant in the room is Val in grand finals. Ain't that crazy? No Axe, no Scythe. We are seeing Val and Thor in grand finals. Now, Meg D does claim that Sword is broken. I think Sword is balanced. I mean, it's seen the most tournament victories on LAN, but I've never seen much complaint for Sword. This just further proves my point that meta doesn't really matter all that much. Do I really need to pull out the famous examples? Don't make me mention Sandstorm Sentinel. We're not going to cover Sentinel today. This man has never touched hammer in his life up until this moment. If you have watched me before, before, you'll know I heavily advocate on thinking for yourself. I think fighting games provide a great platform to do this, whereas when one player is smarter than the other one, or better, they're usually always going to win. If we look at MKLeo, he has a long dominant history with Byleth, a character originally deemed too slow and clunky to do anything. He then used Korn, a very mid-tier two-dimensional character, to win Delfino Mazzaretta. Let's look at some other odd character picks we saw at this LAN. We have our only great sword player, Hardy MJ, taking it to game 5 with Boomy, as well as taking down South America's West. And speaking of Boomy, I'm surprised no one mentions he uses Reno, a meme character from release that operates on 2 string weapons. Typically, you want a knockout weapon and a string weapon, one to build up the damage and then one to execute it. However, since both Guns and Orb have a good kill confirm, he uses Reno. I mean, Reno was such a meme that Sparky made a sweater of the character stitched into it so that someone would play him. We have seen Boomy use Orb at LTC, and of course we have seen him use Guns a lot. So Reno was only the logical pick here. Personally, I'd recommend him to try Munin again, but I think his Blasters is always going to be his best. Another popular Blasters player is Cody Travis, who may not have performed at his best in ones, but when do you see another Brawlhalla player? Brawlhalla has an insane stat line, a very good string weapon, and a good knockout kill confirm. But there's only one Brawlhalla player, and you could argue that he has Axe, which is following the meta, but he has consistently played Brawlhalla for more than 3 years. I asked a super long time ago in Phazon stream why he uses Brawlhalla, and he says he looks cool in the robot skin. So if anything, when you're picking a character to play, just focus on what you like and not the meta. Because I'm not perfect, and I do have some flaws in this point, I won't glaze over the fact that we didn't see any cannon, and barely any katars, and barely any bow. We did see Wave God on a Suri, so that was pretty cool. However, yes, I'll admit that cannon is not the best weapon out there, and clearly there are some preferences to weapon choice. But I'd like to point out that many times a weapon has been seen as useless until a pro decided something about it was broken and then took a tournament by storm, like Isaiah at Rotterdam. You can be the change. If you have some inkling that a character might be broken or on the verge of meta breaking, you could be the next world champion, and you would never know unless you try. But instead of making this cyclical debate over weapon skill, be a Chad and do what you think is good. Chads also subscribe to Vonike. As a matter of fact, they tend to like my videos too. I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye.